I have a question for people with uteruses who said when they were young, like my age, like early 20s, that they weren't gonna have kids and they didn't want to have kids. I'd like to hear from the women and uterus owners who didn't want kids and still didn't want kids afterwards, because I'm kind of tired of telling an older person like, yeah, I don't really want kids, and them going like, well, I didn't want kids your age either.
Hello, I'm Rachel, I'm 34, and I've been child-free for 10 years. I feel like a lot of things have happened in my life that I truly wanted a kid deep down. I would have realized it by now. First, people love to say that you'll want kids when you find the right man. Well, when I met the person who I thought was the right man, it actually prompted me to, for the first time, use the label child-free, because I liked it just being the two of us. Not to mention we were very, very poor at the beginning of our relationship. Now, he and I were together for 7 years, we are not together anymore, and I suppose that the argument could be made that clearly he was not the right man, and when I do meet the right man, I'll want a kid with him. But if that were the case, people would only have babies with people they're in love with and who are stable in every way, and who they also believe would be a good parent. And we all know that that's not the case. People make children during one-night stands with people whose full name they don't know. Kid having is not and never has been reserved for married people who are prepared to form a nuclear family. So I don't see why there's any reason why meeting the right person would be the thing that convinces me to have kids. Second thing that I believe would have revealed that I wanted a kid if I did was that I accidentally got pregnant, despite doubling up on birth control. I don't recommend going through this, but if you do, your reaction when you see the test turn positive is a pretty good sign whether or not you want kids, and I was horrified. I didn't live with my partner at the time, so the first thing I did was call him and say, hey, we made a baby and I'm getting an abortion. And he agreed. The third thing that I think would have convinced me to have kids if I really wanted kids is that I have worked with children for a long time. I started teaching kids when I was 15. A handful of my college classes involved working with kids, and I've been everything from a camp counselor to a nanny, because I think kids are great. But what I felt was equally great was giving them back to their parents at the end of the day. Even my very favorite charges couldn't convince me that having a kid was the right thing for me, because there is so much more to being a parent than liking your kid. The podcast Cognitive Dissonance just released an episode last week about regretful parents, and in the episode they talk about this article from Time magazine. Now, one host of the podcast, Cecil, is child-free, and the other host of the podcast, Tom, didn't want kids but ended up having two. Tom says in the episode that his oldest child was not planned, and if he had been the one carrying the fetus, he would have gotten an abortion. But because his ex didn't want an abortion, the kid was born, and Tom stepped up to provide for the kid and, at the time, his wife. And one of the things that Tom talked about is, while parenting is hard, one of the most challenging things about parenting is that so much of it is tedious. Pick up, drop off, waiting in the lobby of the dance studio or on the sidelines of soccer practice because your kids need enrichment and to develop skills, helping with homework. He makes the great point that when you see commercials or movies or whatever of parents playing with their kids, the kids are always doing something that's fun and creative for both the kid and the parent. But the reality of playing with your kid, especially if your kid is very small, is that often what they want to play is not really a game. It's something like dropping their spoon on the floor 45 times. Not only is that not something you can play, but it's probably annoying as fuck. But that's part of parenting and part of the kid's development. And the fourth and final thing that I think would have convinced me to have kids if I wanted them was my niece being born. From everything she's told me, my sister loves being a mom, and being a mom has really made her blossom in a way that's been beautiful to watch. And when my niece was born, I had my first and only stab of guilt that I wasn't having kids, because it means that my niece will not have cousins. But while my sister talks all the time about how much she loves being a mom, she also doesn't hold back telling me some of the shitty parts. I texted her on her birthday to ask if she was doing anything fun, and she wrote back that my niece had a double ear infection, and when my niece wasn't crying in pain, she was throwing up on her parents. My niece is very cute, but she does not give me baby fever. Nothing has ever given me baby fever. So all of this to say, yes, there are people like you out here. I question many parts of my life, but I have never wavered on my decision to be child-free. It's just the right choice for me.